My name's Dean, and I'm your host. You're listening to The Non-Typical Project. Episode 13 of The Non-Typical Project. Today, I've got Bryson Ziegler on, hailing out of the great state of Oklahoma. Bryson has been kind of on my radar for probably about a year or two, just through mutual friends and stuff like that. And just recently here, November of 25, Bryson took one heck of a buck with some serious age class on him. So I definitely wanted to get him on, talk a little bit more about that and the history with that buck. Bryson, welcome on the podcast, man. I'm glad to have you here.
Glad to be here, man. Glad to be here.
Absolutely. I saw the post from that buck, and immediately, like, one of the things that stuck out to me was you mentioned that buck, you kind of estimated he was like 7.5 to 8.5 years old, which for a buck of that age class, especially, that was an Oklahoma buck, right, too?
Okay.
Yeah, so a buck of that age class and his size and out of Oklahoma, that's just the kind of a perfect storm for, like, he's got to have some serious history and definitely a wise buck to make it to that age. So I kind of want to get right into that with you. When did you first come to know of this buck? Was he on a permission property, a property that your family owned, something like that? Kind of how did that come to be?
It was a permission property through my uncle. Little bit of a backstory real quick. My uncle has this place and I never got to hunt it growing up. That was like something that him and my grandpa hunted and my other uncles. They would go out there, they hunted it, and I'd get to go with them, like driving around checking cows and stuff like that. And I mean, I don't know. I remember being 10, 12 years old, just driving through the pasture checking cows, and I remember seeing these cedar trees big cedar trees, like 7-inch diameter trees just shredded. And I was like, "Oh my gosh." I was like, "There are some giants out here." And, my grandpa passed away, and nobody hunted it that hard. He was the only one that really hunted it, but he never really shot anything big out there, and, I was always like, well, I know there's big deer out there, but I didn't know really what was going on. And I think I was 16 when I was granted permission to start deer hunting it, and I'm 24 now. Um, and dude, it was like in the beginning, I had some solid deer on camera or just out there, and I wasn't really hunting that hard. I was a big duck hunter back then, up until 3 years ago or so, 3 or 4 years ago. And the run in that I had with Dash, it was in uh I want to say it was 3 deer seasons ago. The first time that I had seen him in person, and I hunted that property off and on. I had a few like nice rut bucks that would come through that place every now and again. Uh just kind of wrote that place off, and uh finally I was like, I'm gonna do something out here, and I'm gonna, try and get this place up to holding big deer again. And which it was. I just didn't know that much about deer hunting then. And
Yeah.
dude, that place, I went out there and I was hunting a deer I named Moose that deer season. And I hunted a buck I had tabs on for a couple years too. His name was Ace. Ace and Moose, I had tabs on them, and I killed Ace early season, and I was like, well, I I think I texted my Uncle Rob that summer, and I was like, "Hey," I was like, "Can I plant a food plot out there this year?" And he was like, "Well, where at?" And I was like, "Well, I'm wanting to do about an acre that butts up to this big block of hardwoods." And he was like, "No." He's like, "You're gonna cut out too much grazing ground." And I was like, "Great." So I was like, "Well, I'm just gonna feed." So I started feeding on that property, and I think I poured out like 6 bags of corn, and it was either like 5 or 6 just on the edge of this little island surrounded by these hardwoods. And I had this freak show up. I mean, like, he was 170, like mid 70s, And,
Golly.
dude, and it was during black powder, my buddy Daxton, he had just shot a toad in the neighborhood that I live in now, like, literally right across the street from my house now. But I was going to help him, and my cell cam goes off, and it's, like, 10:30 in the morning, and I was like, "Oh my gosh." I was like, "That is a giant." I was like, "Dude, I can't." I was like, "I can't make it out there. I gotta go kill this deer real quick." So I hauled butt out there, hunted, nothing. That night, I think yeah, that night, right after dark, after I got out of there, he was there, the big one, and then Dash showed up as a 5.5-year-old deer, I'm gonna say, and, he showed up, and I was like, "That's a big 8 point," and, I mean, I found his match or his right side that spring, and I matched him up, scored him at 141, and
Wow.
yeah, he was a toad, and I was like, "Gosh," I was like, "I don't know if I'm gonna be able to pass this deer if he comes in." Well, I go out there, and I was still hunting that big deer, that 170, and I was like, "I want him bad." I was like, "I know he's in there locked down with a doe." I was like, "I think I can kill him if I get in there and I just play my cards right." Well, I go in there the next afternoon, and I think I was slipping in at, like, 1 o'clock, and I parked my truck at the gate, and I walked, and I made a big kinda like horseshoe coming in downwind of my stuff, and then I think my corn was, like, I don't know, 20 yards away from the tree that I was trying to climb in. I already pre-hung everything, and I climb up in this or as I'm walking up there, I look up, and Dash is standing in my corn, and I'm like, "Do I shoot this thing or not?" I'm like, "God," and he's 60 yards away from me. I got my black powder loaded, just debating on if I'm gonna shoot him. And I sat there for about 5 minutes, and I was like, "I'm not gonna kill him." I was like, "If I kill him, I'm gonna kill him with my bow." I was like, "I'm not gonna kill that deer right now. There's a bit way bigger deer in here." I was like, "I'm just gonna try." So I go in there after he worked off. I go in, climb up my tree, and, uh I was like, "He's gonna be in here tonight, the big one is." I was like, "I know I'm gonna kill him." I was like, "As long as I'm patient, I have the does that are coming to this." Everything it was just like the perfect storm. It was chilly that afternoon too, and, we were coming off of I think it rained that entire morning, and deer movement was just, like, to a halt. Like, no deer were moving at all throughout the night and into the late morning, and I'm sitting there and about, I don't know, an hour and a half, 2 hours go by. Had a couple nice bucks come out and, tending does around and tending young deer. And I look over and here comes 6 does across the pasture coming right towards me. And I'm like, here we go. I was like, this is about to get real. About that time, I just see that tall 8 point frame just waltzing across the pasture right behind him. And I was like, "God, please don't make me do this right now." And, dude, he was and for a deer like that to come in on me, I was literally about to vomit. I wanted to shoot him so bad, I could not stand it, and I was just sitting there watching him as he's working to me the entire time, and I'm like, "He's at 40 yards right now," and I've got my bow hung up right beside my camera, and I wasn't even filming yet, and I was like, "He's gonna come on a dead string to me." Does come into the corn, they're 15 yards right underneath me, and he's standing up a little bit above them, and he's just watching them, and I'm like, "You sorry dog." Well, dude, he literally just breaks and starts coming right for the does, so I was like, "I'm not gonna do it." I just instead of reaching for my bow, I reached for my camera, and I filmed him. He came into, like, 15 yards and chased those does around. Hung out at or I'm trying to think. He ate for, like, 5 minutes maybe, just right
Wow.
underneath yeah, right underneath me. He didn't bust, he didn't do anything. He ended up turning around and chasing does out in the pasture till dark. I get down, I'm walking out, uh, and not even to my truck yet, my cell cam just starts blowing up. And I'm like, "I swear if this deer's standing there," and sure enough, the big one was standing there.
Oh,
And
no.
yeah, and he's standing there, and then I get another picture of Dash just ears pinned back, going right towards him, and I was like, "No." Dude, that night, Dash showed up, like, I think 30 minutes later with a huge gash down his back, and I was like, "He whooped that deer out of there." And he did. He ended up kicking that deer out. I'd never seen that deer again,
Holy cow.
and Dash became the owner of that property. He literally it was like what I hunt is probably safe to say the lot that I hunt is probably about 15 acres, 20 acres on a it kinda, like, bottlenecks down, and my uncle owns probably 200 to 300 acres, but it's a majority of it's pasture. Well, I'm hunting everything that, like, bottlenecks down and, like, butts up to my neighbors. I'm surrounded by neighbors all around me, and that was another thing of, "Am I gonna shoot this deer or shoot Dash, or am I just gonna let him go, or what am I gonna do?" And I was, as I was sitting there thinking about it, as I was watching him come to me, I was like, "Man," I was like, "Somebody's gonna shoot that deer if he sees him." Like,
Yeah.
100%. It's black powder, his rifle hadn't even got here yet. I was like, "Somebody will shoot that deer." Well, I was sitting there looking at him, and I was like, "Well, if I kill him, then I'm never gonna know. Like, I'm never gonna know if he'd make it or not." And that was the only thing that I kept telling myself, and I was like, "I'm not gonna do it." Well, he owned that farm, dominated it, was daylighting, I mean, every other day. The rest of that season stayed on me, lived on me. I mean, I had this deer down to a T. Found his sheds in the spring, didn't have a single summer picture of him at all. And I was like, I really got scared then because I was like, "Oh my gosh." I was like, "Well, I at least know he shed." I'm like, "Did EHD get him? Did chronic wasting disease?" I mean, I didn't know what happened. Did coyotes get him pinned down? I didn't know.
So before we get into that summer and not
Mhm,
seeing them, so
mhm,
at that time, we're talking 3 deer seasons ago, you're what, 2021, and
mhm,
you had 2 opportunities to shoot them in 1 day.
mhm.
At that time, what region of Oklahoma are you in? You southwest, southeast,
I'm in Eastern Oklahoma.
eastern Oklahoma? Okay, so
Mhm.
at that time and at that point in your life, the way that he was right then, the first time you saw him, would that have been the biggest buck of your life, or was he not up there with the biggest, or kinda
He
where would
he
he?
he was definitely close. I mean, I think actually, yeah, he would have been the biggest deer that I'd killed. I mean, I knew that 170 was in there, and that was what was holding me on,
Yeah,
and I just was like, "I wanna get something big, like, you ain't gonna kill." I've shot a lot of really nice deer. I've shot quite a few Pope and Youngs and stuff like that, but I wanted a giant that year, and I was like, "I've got a giant out here. I'm gonna do everything I can to make it happen," you know?
yeah,
And
that's but to have that kinda, like, restraint on
mhm,
what would be the biggest buck of your life, just there's one bigger right around the corner.
yeah,
Dude, that kinda temptation sitting there right in front of you, like, that'll about ruin you in the
exactly,
moment. Yeah,
exactly.
yeah,
It really makes or breaks you, I promise. It was not one of the easiest things I've ever done whitetail hunting, but it was the biggest payoff that I'd ever done.
for
But
sure. So you get into that summer, and you don't get a single picture of them all summer long.
not a single picture. I turkey hunted out there, and I was like, "I'm gonna see him out here turkey hunting." I was like, "I'll know," like, I knew exactly what his body looked like, I could tell I could see the scar on his back, like, I knew what deer was what, you know? And I kept
Yeah,
eyes. I drive by all the neighbors', hay meadows in the summertime every other evening. Excuse me. Every other evening, could not find him. I'd see deer out in the hay meadows every evening, really nice bucks, but never him. And I was like, "I don't know what's going on." Uh, I was like, "Maybe he's, a couple properties over, maybe he's got." a natural food source that he's just hammering in the summertime. I didn't know. And turns out I was like, I'm just gonna keep feeding, keep doing everything I need to do. I was like, he'll either show up or he won't. And I got to like going back and looking at dates of when he started showing up, and it was like October 4th. I got a couple pictures of him, or no, that was like October 15th, 16th when I got my first two pictures of him. And I was like, okay, I was like, well, maybe he's just one of those deer. And I've always heard of deer doing that, like set your clock and set the date, like he's going to be there. This deer 100% without a shadow of a doubt did that. I mean, he was a little earlier the next year. He showed up I think October 4th in the morning and daylighted right at my corn. I was like, no way. I was like, this deer's here. I was like, I just need to go kill him now. I haven't been out there at all. I fed a very, very large amount to just try and pull deer because all of my neighbors, they're planting huge food plots. Like I'm competing with them. And I was like,
Yeah.
I had nothing or nothing else to do to be able to pull those deer and keep them on me. And the only thing I could think was just put out as much corn as I possibly could to try and keep him on me, at least let him live and hunt around him, hunt trails, hunt the bedding, hunt whatever I could, and possibly kill him rather than just say, "Oh, I'm not gonna bait, I'm not gonna do any of that, I'm just gonna hunt and hopefully get lucky." And dude, he was like a ghost last year. I mean, would be there. He was there that morning, there that evening, and I was like, I've got him now. I was like, he's dead. Well, I was working night shift and at this job, and I was getting off at like 3 in the morning every morning. I got off at like 3. I think we were back on 10s. Well, he was either there in the morning time or the evening. I mean, he did not miss a beat. I mean, if he wasn't there in the morning, he was there in the evening. And I was like, pretty good chance of killing this deer. Well, I get off. I gave him like a week to get used to everything. And I got off work. I go in. I get there probably about an hour before daylight. And I was like, excuse me. I was like, I'm going to get in there early. That way, I was like, there's nothing there right now. I was like, if I don't bust any deer off of here, I'm probably going to kill him. And, man, I'm like 60 yards from my corn. And I just refreshed my camera. Just refreshed my camera. And I walk like 20 more yards. I'm 30 yards from my corn pile. And I hear a deer jump out of my pen and start blowing. And I was like, that was him. I was like, that
Oh my
100% was him.
gosh.
Dude, I get on my camera, refresh it. It was him. It was him. And it was
Almost an exact copy of what happened that first year, walking up and him being there, basically beating you to it.
exactly. And
Wow.
he was there. He jumped out. He ran. Um, probably 100 yards, stopped, and I could hear him in the timber, because the leaves it was really, really dry, and he ran about 100 yards, I wanna say, and he stopped and he started blowing, and I was like, "If he blows and he goes, I can kinda figure out where he's going and, try to pinpoint his bed," and, I did that. I sat there and listened to him. He went up there, blew 2 or 3 times, and that was it. It was a cat and mouse game for the rest of that year. I never seen him in person one time at all. Like, I straight up hunted. I almost got fired from my job hunting this deer so much, dude. Like, I'm not even joking. Like,
I've been there before.
I'd be texting my boss. I'm like, dude, what can I do to get out of work today? The weather's perfect. And he'd be like, well, I mean, if you get me a doctor's note, dude, I was going in there making up every excuse possible to the doctors trying to get out of this just to get a note, and they'd give me a note, and
Yeah.
I'd go take it to him, and I'd be like, "Yeah, man, I'm sick, I can't go." Well, I hunted him that entire year, and for the last day of rifle season, I actually got really, really sick. Like, I don't remember if it was strep or the flu, and I was sick. I mean, I think I threw up, like, a handful of times trying to go to work, and I was like, "Screw it, I'm not going." I turned around, was headed back, and, I was like, "Well, I'm gonna go out there." I was like, "I know I'm sick, but I'm either gonna be sick laying in bed or I'm gonna be sick out in the woods hunting," you know? I was like, "I'd rather go
Yeah.
be sick out in the woods." So, I'm headed there, it's like, I don't know, 3:15, and I was like, I get all the way out there, it's like an hour before dark. I grab my rifle, last day of gun season, I grab my rifle, throw it on my pack, it's cold, it's raining, and I was walking about, realistically, probably a mile to get back there just because I didn't have him figured out where he was bedding, and I didn't want him to
Sure.
be bedded, short or, watching me walk in or hearing me drive up and then walk in, you know? So I was taking the longest way possible around everything, changing it up every single time I went in, and, I pulled up, parked, got out, threw my rifle on my bag, and, I walked like 50 yards, and I was sitting there, and I was gassed, like, out of air, just sucking air, dude, and I was like, "I ain't gonna be able to do this." I was like, "If I get back there and he's there," I was like, "I'm not gonna be able to shoot him, 200 yards away." I turn around, walk back to my truck, pull up to my house, get out, phone goes off, he's standing there right before dark.
Gosh.
Yeah, and I had that year or last year, I had a really nice 10 point. He was like, I think he was touching 50s. Like, he was a really, really good deer, perfect, typical, huge eye guards. And I had history with him too. He showed up same time that Dash did. And those were the two that I really had my eyes on. Well, the 10 point, he came out middle of rifle when I was set up in a hay meadow. He came out bumping a doe. And I sat there and I stared at him through the crosshairs and I was like, I could shoot him. And I had a suppressor on, still had 2 buck tags in my pocket. I'm like, I could shoot this deer. I was like, but usually when he shows up, Dash shows up. So I held off of him. He pushed the doe into the woods. And that was the last time I seen him. And I that entire year, dude, it was just a cat and mouse game. And then going into this season was like one of the best years that I've had out there. Um, for deer, just good young deer, bucks with a lot of potential, everything. I moved my setup again. I went in the timber probably about 150 yards from where I spooked in, the previous season, just trying to make him feel more comfortable coming to that feed and stuff. And I mean, it's there's a bunch of like logging trails, old logging trails that are cut through the hills through there. And where I was, it was a huge thicket. Like a majority of the deer were bedding like less than 100 yards from me, from my feed.
Wow.
Well, yeah,
So you also
go
I wanna catch you on this one because you said something earlier and I don't wanna forget it now. You mentioned how you're surrounded by neighbors that have got food plots and stuff like that going on, and in Oklahoma, you guys can feed. So you're
yeah,
putting out as much feed as you can to try to pull them onto you.
mhm,
I think one thing that, I'm in Missouri, we can't feed. We can't, right?
yeah,
Most of the state, if not all the state now, we can't even put out salt.
yeah,
So as far as that goes, that's a different world for us.
yeah,
Is I guess when you're talking about Dash and talking about his, kind of tendencies to come in and off the feed, or sometimes he'll just disappear, and you've
mhm,
got feed out all year long,
yeah,
you know, a lot of guys kind of work under the assumption that, well, if you have a giant corn pile, you got these bucks coming up. They're showing up every day because they know there's
oh,
this huge corn
that's
pile. But here you're talking about, that buck is there and you've got all this corn, but he's still disappearing all the time
Yeah.
and staying out of sight. He's going feeding on food plots or going wherever else. Is that something that you're used to seeing, that those mature bucks will kind of play it all by, off a feel or kind of move off that corn and it's not really a main food source for them?
Yep, and I am so glad that you brought that up because I literally hear it all the time. Is like, and even Hunter, he gives me a hard time about it too, about putting bait out. And I'm like, dude, I'm like, you don't understand. He's like, no, I get it. But those deer, a majority of people that feed around here, when they feed, they have that exact same mindset that 90% of people do is, well, I put feed out, they're going to come to it. Like, that's their mindset. They act like scent doesn't matter. They act like all that doesn't matter. It is, I've hunted Missouri. I've got a 5,000 acre farm in Missouri, a private that I hunt. Uh, I shot one really nice deer out there, and I lost a mega out there this year too. But that's another story. We can save that one.
Heartbreaker.
But yeah, dude. Oh, sickening. But that corn, it helps, but at the same time, it really, really hurts you. Like those deer, he knew what that was. He didn't, just think, oh, this is falling from the sky. He knew
Yeah.
I was putting it out. I mean, he knew what was going on. He was smart every single time that he came in. He always checked the wind. He always, had a plan for how to move on it. That's like, what is his name? Cody DeQuisto.
Yeah.
He even talks about it too, like their food plots and stuff. Like they're hunting the downwind side. They're catching these deer going to the food plots because it's so hard to kill them on the food plots.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
a mature buck is a mature buck is a mature buck,
one
regardless of
hundred
what you got
percent,
out there, he didn't
100.
get that old being a dummy.
Exactly, exactly, and they pick up really, really fast on stuff, and it blows my mind that people are just, like, completely oblivious to it. I'm like, "Man, these things are smart." Like, they are really, really smart. Like, they pick up on stuff so fast. Like, I have does in there, and I walked in one day really weird. I don't remember what the deal was. I don't remember if I was sneaking past deer or something, but I walked in one day, and I went down a trail that I usually don't go down. Well, some does cut the scent track of me walking in. I wore my Hey Dudes into that set. Well, they cut my trail and hit my ground scent, poof, gone. And I was like, whatever. Dude, every time that they came back in there to that feed, that one doe that cut my scent, she would literally come in first, walk around, and go right to where she smelled me that one time, smell if I'd walked through there, and then would go to the corn, or, if I walked through there again, she was gone.
It takes one time for 'em, man.
One
One
time.
time, and
Yeah,
they're never gonna forget that.
yeah, yeah. They are
100%.
smart, dude. I tell people that all
Oh,
the time.
yeah.
I'm like, "Man, I would much rather hunt deer over, corn and ag land and stuff like that. I would give anything in the world to have the ground that I have up north down here. I would kill for it, man. Like we have like what all we're hunting now, a majority of it is cow pastures and oak ridges, I mean, and just oak trees. That's all we really
Yeah.
got. And that's what sucks, but it is what
And
it is. We deal with
they've got no shortage of food too off those oak ridges and stuff like that. They can sit there and
100%.
feed off a acorn and make themselves plenty fat and happy off of that.
100%. Yeah,
Yeah, so
no, that's
you were talking about getting into this season. You had a bunch of bucks showing up, good potential, and where's Dash?
Dash was MIA, and I think I called Hunter, I called Dylan, and I called my buddy Daxton and Dylan Rutledge from Florida. I called all them, and it was like they're all sending me pictures, like Hunter and them, they're sending me inventory and stuff, and I'm like they're like, "Where's Dash?" I'm like, "He ain't there yet. He's gonna be there though." They're all like, are you gonna have a backup plan? You know, do you have any deer that you might go shoot? You know, it's October 2nd, dude. Like, what are you doing? You ain't even hunting yet." And I was like, "He'll be there." And they were like, "Well, when's he usually show up?" I was like, "October 4th." I was like, "October 4th, he was there last year in the morning time." I was like, "He's gonna be there this year, October 4th." The morning of October 4th of this year at, like, 3:30 in the morning, boom, he was there. And I was like,
Wow.
I sent it to everybody. I was like, "I told you, dude. I knew he was gonna be there." And, I was like, "I've got him now." I was like, "It's over." I was like, "This is his year that I kill him." I was like, "I'm gonna kill him." Well, I had 1 buck that I passed up. I gave Dash, like I think I gave him 2 weeks this year of me not even going out there. I had plenty of feed because I knew when he was gonna be there, and I just gave him 2 weeks to just kinda chill, and, I was like, "I'm gonna wait till everything's right. I'm gonna go in, I'm gonna hunt him." I was like, "I think I should be able to kill him first set." Well, he was being really shifty, like, he wasn't daylighting that much early, and, I gave him 2 weeks. I go in and hunt him because I was just waiting for that, random daylight, and, it's like October 12th, I think, 12th or 14th. I go in, climb up my tree, sitting there right before dark. I hear something coming on the, uh, I guess it'd be the downhill side of me, north of me. I hear something coming, and I'm like, "Here he comes." Well, I grab my bow, pull it off the hanger. I turn. It's like a I don't know. He's 130. He was 130 for sure, but he was just a super wide deer, pencil horn deer, and walked right underneath my tree, walked into the corn pile, was sitting there eating, and he's like a 3-year-old. And I'm like, oh my gosh. I'm like, this dude. I was like, I'm just getting tempted this year. I already know. And I mean, granted, he didn't have no he was a nice deer. He was a really nice deer. How wide he was, I'll send you some of the videos of him. He was a super cool deer, but he hung out on me for about 2 weeks, and, but anyways, after that deer came in, I got down that evening, and I got down right after that deer jumped out and, worked off. I got down and I got out of there because I wasn't trying to sit there any later, because I knew as soon
Yeah.
as that deer left, he was gonna be there. I wasn't even 100 yards from my corn, and Dash was there. And I was like, "You sorry dog, man." Well, the cat and mouse game just progressed from then on out. I hunted him all of October and was just absolutely getting my teeth kicked in. Like, when I was there, he wasn't. When he was there, I wasn't. And I mean, I was hunting this deer way more aggressively, but also smart to where I knew I could get away with, scent, stuff like that before a storm, during a storm, stuff like that. And, I started, like, losing hope. 100% was just about to, you know, really wanted to throw in the towel on this one and just go find a different one and go hunting.
Yeah.
And, I was sitting there and I was like I remember there was one morning, uh, it was like it was black powder. We got rained out, or we were at work, we got rained out. My boss told me, he was like, "You're good, go." As I'm driving home, my camera updates, bam, he's there. It's 11:30 in the middle of the day, daylighted, and I was like, "Oh my gosh." I was like, "I gotta go there right now." Dude,
Yeah.
it's pissing rain, and it's black powder season, and I am, like, screaming trying to get there. I get out there, and he was literally there, like, 15 minutes before I got there. I get out there, like, he was just standing around, piddling around, working some scrapes that I had set up, some mock scrapes, and there were some does there with him. And I was like, "He's dead. This evening, he dies." Well, I get out, and it's just I mean, straight up pissing down rain on me. I get in there, I think everything's perfect. I had a nice 8 point with double kickers come in, and that was it. The rest of the evening. I got in there at like noon and I sat all the way till dark and yeah, got
Oh,
absolutely pissed. Dude, I was literally so wet that I was pruny and I was shaking. Like I sat there for like 2 hours just straight up shaking. I was like, "I'm gonna die of what you would call it?" From
hypothermia.
yeah, hypothermia. Yeah, I was like, "Dude, I'm gonna get that. I'm gonna die out here." It was rough. I was sitting on the ground. I was like, "I'm just gonna sneak in, get underneath this cedar, and try to keep as much rain off me as I can." Dude, I've got my gun covered up, like, laying on it, just trying to keep water out of my scope and stuff.
Gosh,
That's
the amount of times that you've had this buck now, like, come in right as you left, you show up, he's already there, he beat you there, like, within a matter of minutes.
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
a
It
dozen
was
times within a matter of minutes, it was the difference in
yeah,
killing him and not.
yep. And,
Wow.
dude, he, me and him played that cat and mouse game after black powder. He disappeared for about 3 days to a week, and I was telling everybody, I was like, "Oh, he's not on me right now, or he's on lockdown." And they were like, "Well, what are you gonna do?" And I was like, "Well, I'm gonna go to Missouri." I was like, "It's November 1st." I was like, "I'm going to Missouri." I was like, "They're getting it on right now." So me and my dad go up there on a little weekend getaway, and we go up there, hunt that morning. I had a good one come in, but it was just too thick for me to shoot him. He was like I say a good one. He was a 160. I mean, he was big. And
Slammer.
yeah, he was a slammer. I was sitting there and uh I was in this big CRP field and Hunter, Hunter, him and them CRP fields.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I'm gonna see how good they are. And I did a rattle sequence and I grunted a couple times and I hear burp, burp, and I was like, "What the hell?" And I turn around and here comes this damn 160 just marching to me. And I was like, "Oh my God." I was like, "This does not happen in Oklahoma."
Turns out
And
them CRP fields are pretty damn good.
yeah, it was money. He did what the only thing that I didn't think a deer would do, but I should have known a big deer would do it, just to play it safe.
Yeah.
And he just skirted me, and it was too thick for me to shoot him, and I was in an oak tree of about a diameter of a baseball bat, so I'm sitting there like trying not to freaking fall or anything or cause too much movement. And but anyways, we had a good hunt up there, and about I don't know 12:15 in the middle of the day. It was raining down here, and then the sun, broke away. My phone just starts blowing up, and I'm like, "You have got to be kidding me." Get on there.
Oh,
He's
boy.
standing there. Dude, standing there, broad daylight, middle of the day. Did it for 2 days, Saturday and Sunday, November 1 and 2, just middle of the
Oh
day,
my gosh.
afternoon. Dude, kicked my butt. I was like, this deer has to be watching me drive down. Like, he has to be watching me drive in and park at my aunt and uncle's and then walk all the way back. I was like, "He has to be better in their backyard or something than just walking back there."
You're starting to think he watched you pack your bags from Missouri, like
Dude, I swear, this deer he had me figured out, and, it was I think it was rifle season started. I don't know. I think it was right at the beginning of rifle, uh, opening weekend, I do wanna say. I go out there, I was playing it a little less aggressive, and I was hunting the hay meadows, seeing if he was gonna be out there tending does or cutting across, fields or draw to draw. And I was like, well, I'll just play it safe. If he shows up on the camera, I'll make a move on him and get in there close and shoot him. Well, uh, the first morning I go in there to rifle hunt, I had that exact game plan. I get in there, dude. I had not heard a single, I'm talking anything, not a four-wheeler, nothing on the neighbor all year long. Opening day of rifle season, buddy, or whenever I was out there, I probably heard at least 8 different four-wheelers and side-by-sides, ripping it all around me, going to their spot. Like, I could see headlights through the timber, and I'm just like, "Are you kidding me?" I was like, "I'm screwed." I was like, "How am I supposed to
Running a
compete with
derby
this?"
over there.
Yeah. Yeah, they're just doing whatever, and I was like, "Oh my god." Dude, first light comes, it's like a damn war zone. I mean, gunshots every 5 minutes, dude. I'm just like,
Oh,
I was my heart's just dropping, and I'm just like, after every shot, it just gets deeper and deeper into my belly, and I was like, "God, if I see this deer posted today on Facebook, I'm gonna flip out." And, I was like, "Whatever, man." Well, I was like, "Well, I'm gonna make a big loop." I was like, "And see if the neighbors are camping, because the neighbors usually camp on the property line, like, legit 20 yards off the property line, that's where their campsite is,
oh boy.
and it's yeah, and it's about 250 to 300 from my corn, so, I mean, they aren't too terribly far,
Yeah.
and, I was like, "Well, I'm gonna make a big loop around, I'm gonna walk down that fence, talk to them if I see them." I was like, "And I'm gonna hang a camera in this bedding area." And, while everything's, just going chaotic. Well, I top the hill and to, like, look down the, property line, and there's 2 guys in orange standing there at the fence, pointing at the trail that they're looking at, and then pointing, onto my hay meadow, and I'm like, "You sorry dogs." I'm like, "Don't you do it." I was like, "Dude, I will come down here and we'll run it." I was like, "I do not care." And I watched them, and they turned, and they're really good people. They turned, and they were just I guess they were just checking out sign. They turned and walked back towards camp. Well, they had that whole area. They had me surrounded, like my property line, 100 yards off of it. They have stands, just I mean, marked. And
Oh no.
yeah, I make a big loop. I hang this camera. I hang the camera. And I was like, "All right, I'm just gonna get out of here. I'm gonna go grab something to eat, and I'm gonna slip back in." So I hang the camera. I'm walking out about. Oh, I can see my truck. Like, I mean, I'm 300 yards from my truck, and I'm like, I don't know why, but there's like this little fence. There's this fence line that runs between me and my truck, just cutting our pastures in half. Where my uncle usually separates heifers and his cows.
Yeah.
And there's like, a handful of trees that are probably 20 foot tall that is just, like, one tree, down the fence line. And, I just, like, turn to my right and I look, and a doe's standing there, and it looked like she had just stood up, like, she was all hunched up and stuff, and I was like, "What?" So I laid down and I throw my rifle on my pack, and I mean, I'm 100 yards from my truck, 200 yards from my truck, and I'm, like, looking at this doe, and she's probably about 250 from me, and then about that time, I just see Frame stand up, and I was like, "Are you kidding me?" Dude, those hunters those hunters pushed that buck off of me, or off of them onto me, and he locked down with this doe in the middle of this little itty bitty fence line on my property, and he's like, I don't know, 200 yards on me, and I was like, "No way." I was like, "I'm cooking this deer," and I'm looking at him, and I'm like, "That's a big deer." I'm like, "I don't think that's Dash," and then I got to looking at him, I was like, "That looks a lot like Dash." So I just freaking and I mean, I knew he was a mature deer, that was the first thing I looked at was body, head, and then horns. And I looked at his body, I was like, "He's a 5.5, 6-year-old deer," and, I looked at his horns, and I was like, "It's a big deer." I was like, "He's getting tagged." So I pop him, and dude, that was the first buck I'd killed in Oklahoma in probably, I think, 2 years. Yeah, 2 years since I'd killed moose, and, I shot him, he mule kicks, runs 10 yards, jack another shell in, shoot him again, jack another shell in, shoot him again. I shot this deer 3 times. Dude, I'm talking, like, literally like this. I coulda stuck all 3 fingers into every bullet hole. Like,
Wow.
he was not leaving that doe. He was locked down with her. and he was just a rut buck. But
Yeah.
I got to looking at him. I was like, dude, that deer looks a lot like Dash. I was like, that's actually crazy how much he looks like him. Well, I go home. My buddy, he shot a big one that morning too. That was another reason why I was getting it out of there was he shot one and I was gonna go help him, take pictures and stuff. Well, I shot that one and I was like, well, let's take pictures together. I was like, we both shot a stud.
I was gonna say you guys
Um,
have a pretty awesome double
yeah.
up picture out of that one.
Yeah, yeah, we had a pretty sick one. And so I loaded him up and I got back to the house. We were all high-fiving, celebrating. It was a great day. Um, I was I was going to go hunt the next day, and I was like, "I'm not gonna go hunt today." I was like, "I'm just give it the day. I'm gonna give it a day off." And, I was like, "I'll go hunt the next morning maybe if I'm feeling like it." Dude, I woke up that next morning, and I'm sitting there, and it's my alarm hadn't even went off yet. And I was like, "Do I really wanna go today?" And I was like, every time, I don't know, knock on glass, but every time that I wake dude, every time that I wake up and I'm laying there and I'm just staring at my phone and I'm like, "I do not wanna go today." That's my best days. Every
Yeah.
single time, it's just if I get myself to get out of bed, I always do not regret it. And, well, I get out there and I was on the phone with my buddy Daxton the entire way, and I was like, "Man," I was like, "I don't know what it's gonna be like." I was like, "But I'm gonna go try him." Get out there, climb up my tree. About 20 minutes into daylight, I hear something coming down the hill, and, it's these does, and there's, I don't know, probably 3 or there was 3. 3 for sure. I think a 4th one made a loop around me or something or did something squirmy, but they, uh they come down the mountain, and usually a majority of the time when they come in, like, they fully commit. I mean, as long as their wind's good and it's right in their face, they'll jump in and, won't be a problem. Well, something was up. My wind always swirls at that stand, but that's the only place that I really felt like I had a bulletproof shot of killing him at. And they, were coming down and they started breaking off away from it like they were gonna, make a big loop around it. And I was like, do they smell me? Well, they stop about even with me past the corn and they're all like looking back. And as soon as they all just snapped their heads back, I immediately stood up and I grabbed my bow. I grab my bow and I look up, dude. All I seen is tines just underneath that cedar tree. And I was like, no way this is happening right now.
Here we go.
Dude, he walks up to the pen and he looked at me once and I would have swore on anything that he was going to turn and go. I mean, me and him sat there and we made eye contact and he just stared at me, jumped right in, and I was like, "No way." Well, I had to wait for a couple minutes for him to turn broadside because he was facing me, and I mean, I'm confident shooting a frontal, but head down and a frontal, I wasn't really that confident, and up in a tree,
Yeah.
and, I'm sitting there watching him, I'm like, "Dude, please turn." As soon as I seen him twist that left leg, I ripped it back, and he turned, I shoot him. I In my honest opinion, I did not think that deer was gonna be able to jump out of that pen and run uphill the way he came, especially where I hit him. Dude, I rip it back, he turned, I bury it into his armpit, boop, perfect. I hear him jump, or I hear him, like, do that growl. Have you ever heard him growl when you shoot him?
Yeah, that real deep guttural.
Yeah, yeah, it's like his lungs deflated, and it was just like,
Yeah.
dude, he jumps out of the pen, takes off running head down, barely like bulldozing, and I'm like, "Fall, fall," and he's just going, and I'm like, "Dude, how is this deer not falling yet?" He finally falls. I mean, he only went 40 yards, but it felt like I watched him run 100, you know? Well, he falls, and he's sitting there kicking, and, I hang my bow up. The first thing I did is I hang my bow up, and I, like, immediately grabbed the tree, and I was like, "I'm gonna fall out of this tree if I don't do something right." I was like, "I'm about to freak out right now." Dude, it was the best feeling or most satisfying feeling that I've had as a bow hunter, killing that deer and, all the history that I had with him, usually a majority of the deer that I kill, I have some sort of history with, but him, it was just like I knew that deer more than I know a majority of people, And
Yeah,
he I walked up on him and I was freaking out. I was crying. I called my dad. I was like, dude, I just killed this deer. And he was like, "No way, no, you didn't." And I flipped it around and he was like, "Oh my God, you killed him." He was like, "That is insane." He was like, "I really didn't think." He's like, "Son, I love you with all my heart." He was like, "But I really didn't think that you were gonna get him just because how he'd been acting recently." And I was like, "I know."
yeah,
I was like, "I didn't either." Well, I'm calling everybody freaking out, and it was a it was an awesome time. The good Lord was definitely on my side that morning, and that was a deer that I remember, dude, I would sit there and I'd pray. I mean, every other hunt before I'd go in there, I'd be like, "Lord, please just let me kill this deer." I've got all the history that I want with this deer. I was like, "Please just let me kill him." And, dude, he made me wait, but I'm glad he made me wait because, dude, it was the greatest bit of satisfaction that I've ever had out of deer hunting. I mean, it was just everything that I could have imagined. He was so smart. He was so smart on how he moved. He was literally ducking 15 plus hunters. I mean, neighbors and stuff. I mean,
yeah,
I know they had him on camera. I mean, I had his rubs. Like I found a rub that I know that was made from him like 20 yards from the fence, and I was like, "He's on the neighbor." I'm like, "They have to at least have some sort of pictures of him or something." And, I never got in contact with any of the neighbors, but my buddy that hunts west of me, he had him on camera as a 3-year-old or a 4-year-old, and from then on, from the 4-year-old plus, I had him on me, and he just kinda, became a regular on me and eventually took that place over, but he was definitely boss hog, and he that was one deer that I will say I you think you know him until you go hunt a deer like that. Like, dude,
yeah,
I had been all over that property. I had looked for ever on trying to find his beds. I'm like, when he's bedding on me, where is he bedding? Like, is he bedding up high? Is he bedding down low? Like, what's he doing? I would find stuff that would make sense. I'd throw a camera on it and never get him there. And I'm like, I don't understand it. And he was just a ghost that year that I killed him. I mean, the first year I kinda had him figured out, and I figured he was doing the same thing until I went and tried to find him, and he was not doing the exact same thing he did as a 5-year-old. Um, but dude, it was just he was so unpredictable and, like, I don't know, he was a tough deer to hunt. Like, that was one of the deer that I will tell my grandkids about, being a tough deer,
yeah.
but
Man,
he was
I I gotta tell you, like, how quick could that story have changed if you didn't get yourself out of bed that morning, you know?
exactly.
If you woulda just said, "Yeah, no, not feeling it today," and I wanna be sure on this too. So is that the next day after you killed that rifle buck?
A day after.
A day
So
after.
I took that day off and I told my buddies, I was like, "Man, I'm just gonna kinda, you know, set back now and play my cards right." And then I was like, "Man, if I set back and I let off this deer, like, he's just gonna do what he did to me last year." I was like, "I gotta stay on top of him." And if I wouldn't have stayed on top of him, and a lot of hunters, I see it very, very often. They get their buck or they get a buck, and then they'll just kinda ride that high until it just dwindles out, and then they'll go back to the grind, and they'll get out there and start hunting again. If I woulda rode that high, there isn't I would not be we wouldn't be having the conversation about him right now, I don't think.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so easy to do. I mean, I've had seasons before where I put in all that time in the summer and I scout the buck and I scout the buck and then I kill him. And then the rest of the season, I'm like, yeah, I'll go when I go. It's
Yep.
easy to let
Yep.
off the gas and be like, kind of that false sense of confidence of like, oh
Yeah.
well, I got it done on that one. I'll get it done on the next one. It's real easy to forget, you know, once the story's done. It's real easy to just only remember the part that was like
Please.
when you get them
Yeah.
down.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
you gotta keep in mind that man, you might have killed that deer, you know, that November,
Yeah.
but you hunted him for the last 3 years. That was 3
Yeah.
years in the making, that whole time, every little decision up till then. And, I had this conversation with Hunter too, is
Mhm.
when you get into a chess game with a mature buck like that
Mhm.
and you hunt them for multiple years, you come out such a better hunter on the other side for
100%. I
for
could not
having to
agree
go through
more.
all that. Yeah, for
Yeah.
having to go through all that, man. And was there ever a point, I guess, throughout hunting him and like all those moments where you were that close and he got away or you were not there and he was? Did you ever think back to that first time you saw him being like, "Man, I should have pulled the trigger on him right there." Did that ever
100
just come back and eat at you?
Dude, 100%. I told Dylan and Hunter multiple times, I should've just shot him when I first seen him. And I tell him that joking, but I was like, I remember I joked with Daxton about it. I was like, "Man, I should've just shot him when I first seen him." And he was like, "Yeah." He was like, "But then who would you be hunting now?" And I was like, "You're right." I was like, 100%. That snapped me out of it. And, I was like, "Man, I'm so glad." It's really easy to settle, like, in my opinion, nowadays especially,
For sure.
shooting a 4-year-old that goes 130, 140. I'm not saying that's a bad deer. That's a great deer. That's a really good deer. But to me, the age class is just something that I wanted to work my way up into and, say, like, "Yeah, I can kill these older deer. Like, I can hunt these older deer. I can hang with them?"
Yeah.
And a lot of people, man, they'll shoot big, big, big 4.5, 5.5-year-old deer, that are absolute giants. Like, I see 170s that are 5-year-olds and people are
Oh
shooting
yeah.
them, and I'm like, "Man, like, that's a giant," but at the same time, like, what did you learn off that deer? Like, I'm not saying don't pass a 170. No, never.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
You But, those age class deer, you learn so much more with them, and, I'll be able to reference that in the future to other deer that I have on that property or other deer on different properties and, figure them out, relating to Dash, and it helps so much, um, just sticking with him and staying on him and hunting him. A lot of people would have either A, given up and just been like, "I'm gonna go hunt something else." Like, "I'm not gonna burn my whole season on this one deer." Um, but as long as you stick with them, man, it's 10 times sweeter when you get them. It is, like
Yeah, I mean, I've burned seasons, chasing a specific deer, and you know, I'll get to the end of the season sometimes, and I'll sit there and I'll be like, man, I had a couple bucks that I maybe ought to shot,
yeah,
but man, when I think about how much effort was put into that buck, it's like, you know what? If I would have shot one of those other deer, there's a reason I passed them, and it's
yep,
because it was worth eating the tag at the end of the year if I have to do that to give myself the chance to kill that buck. It's just worth it every
one
time. I
100%.
I ended up killing one of my target bucks this year in September, and I was tickled pink about it. But there was another buck that I'd really only seen him like twice, and I had no history with him. This is my first time I saw him this year, but
Yeah,
I just as fast would have shot this buck, and he was probably would have scored 30 inches less. But
yeah,
when I tell you, I'll send you pictures of him. When I tell you
yeah,
this buck was
yeah,
ancient, I mean he was ancient. Like I've never seen something quite like this. Like he was decrepit looking. He was like
yeah,
120, 130. I mean, he probably died 35 seconds after I got my last picture of him. Like he was just that old. He wasn't gonna.
Jesus.
I don't think he could have made it through the summer. Like let
Yeah,
alone
yeah,
this
yeah.
winter. That buck's dead somewhere. But you know, when I saw that, I was like, oh my gosh. There's just a point where you know age class is the goal, and when age class is the goal, man, you wisen up really fast, especially when you're talking bow hunting. It changes the game entirely. You might be able to kill some bucks, but if you can kill an old buck, you're hunting a
Yeah,
different animal. It's not the same
exactly,
species at that point.
exactly, and, I mean, it's it's so much, and to me, I if I'm gonna shoot one, like, here at least, like, definitely, don't get me wrong, I'm gonna shoot the biggest deer that I can find and the biggest deer available to me. If I have an old bruiser coming in and, like, I figure him out, I'm gonna kill him. I don't care if
Oh yeah,
he's 115, he's dying. Like, anytime,
he's got to.
I love it. I love those old deer, and one of my good buddies, he hunts Kansas a lot, and he shot several booners, and he told me, he was like, "I shoot some big deer." He's like, "But don't get it wrong or don't get it twisted." He was like, "Those old deer are the biggest trophies." He was like, "Some of the oldest deer I have are some of the smallest deer that I have on my wall." He's like, "But those mean the most to me." And I was like, and I just, referenced that, and it kinda stuck with me, and then, of course, I got to grow the story with Dash, and that was just a story that I will never, ever forget, and, targeting him and just going in there and hunting him real hard, and all the miserable sits that I had with him or hunting him, it all paid off in the end, and, uh, being disciplined, it's really hard to stay disciplined, and I'm not saying that I am the most disciplined guy, um, but if you have just a little bit to where you can, what I would do every time I had a good deer show up or a buck that I'm like, I might shoot this deer." I'm like, "How would I feel at the end of the year in the summertime in the off season knowing I took the easy way out and I shot this good deer that a majority of people would shoot rather than sticking to what I wanted the most?" I was like, Dash would eat at me all year long if I wouldn't have killed him. Like,
For
right
sure.
now, I would be losing my mind. I would be burning those woods down, trying to find his sheds, just trying to find something, and, it would have felt like a failure to me if I wouldn't have killed him this year, another failed season, and,
Yeah.
a lot of people, I mean, if you're doing everything you can, man, to hunt those older deer, in my opinion, or hunt older deer and trying to better yourself and stay disciplined, to me, that's a bow hunter and that's a true hunter. It doesn't matter about the trophy, it really doesn't to a lot of people. It really, to me, in a way, it does, but just for, like, I don't know how to explain it. Just for,
It's
like, you know what I'm saying, like, I just wanna better
it's the
myself.
story's sake. It's the story's
Yeah,
sake behind it. It's what builds you as a bow hunter, you know, like
yeah,
whatever that deer is or wherever you're at with bow hunting or wherever you're at with, you know, not even just bow hunting, let's just say it's whitetail hunting in general, you know, like there was a time where just taking, you know, once I stopped when I was growing up and stuff and hunting as a kid, you know, once I killed my first buck that was by myself without my dad sitting next to
yeah,
me, you know, like
yeah,
whatever builds your story, whatever builds you up as a hunter, like that's what makes those deer, you know. And so with
exactly.
a buck like Dash, that's a buck that you engaged with and you got into an old deer and it was, you know, there was no settling for
Yeah,
anything less than that. And
yeah,
so when you come through the other side of that, that just grew you that much more. It's just kind of hitting that next level with whatever your journey is with hunting in general. So those deer
100%.
just hold that space, you know, wherever you were
Yeah,
at and bow hunting at that time, those deer, those antlers on the wall, those mounts, that is a representation of where you were at, you know, at that
exactly,
time, which is
exactly.
you can't trade that for anything.
No.
Um, but yeah, man, those those deer and those kind of growth moments throughout bow hunting, that's why we do this, man. And with the chapter being closed on Dash, what's next year looking like for you? What do you got? Do you have a buck picked out? Do you have a new story in the making, or are you starting from scratch?
Man, I wanna say I, in a way, am starting from scratch. I have a few bucks, though, out there that are gonna be something worth looking at, you know? I'm not 100% on them. I think they're gonna jump. I think they're gonna make that jump that I want them to make. Missouri, I have some Slavs lined up for next year, and
Unfinished
I'm
business in Missouri too.
buddy, they got it coming. I didn't get to go up there much this summer and scout like I did the summer before when I killed in September. Um, I was up there every other weekend in September, man, and I knew exactly what deer was hitting what bean field at what time, and I had pictures of them every single day. But, I've got some deer up there that I've got they've got a tag or a tag already about to be on their horns for next year. I know exactly what I'm going up there for, and now I know if I would have been in a different tree, I would have killed 2 really good deer this year. If I would have found the one that I lost, dude, he was a mega, like, boon. He was the
Oh
biggest deer I've ever
gosh.
dude, he was the biggest deer I've ever seen in my entire hunting career. Like, I I walked in and I was hunting this little it was like these 2 draws or 3 draws in the middle of on one side was CRP, one side was standing corn, and then another side of the draw was standing corn, and then between the road and where I was in the middle was standing corn. Well, I called my buddy when I was going up there and I was like, "Hey, can I hunt this farm?" And he was like, "Yeah, go for it." And I was like, "Sweet." He was like, "I forgot to tell you," he texted me later on when we were getting up there. He was like, "My grandpa seen a giant the other day going in there." And I was like, "You're kidding me." And he was like, "Yeah." And I was like, "What do you think he goes?" Because they gun hunt. That's all they really do. And he was like, he was for sure 180. And I was like, okay. So dude, I go in there the first evening and it's like legit, I'm sitting in the freaking eye of this storm that blows in September and I'm just getting hammered by rain. It was a bust. I seen like 10 deer, but it was just a bust. The rain came and it ruined it. Um, I got out the next morning. I was walking in and I jumped. It was like perfect, perfect morning. It was a little cooler. Um, the it was clear skies though, but I was walking in like an hour and a half before daylight because I knew I had to beat those deer to get back in there, especially early season, because they're on their feet all the time, especially in the standing corn. And I was like, if I can beat them getting back in there and hanging my set and stuff, I'll be good. So I'm walking in and I had my red light on and I got to about 100 yards to 150 yards and I from where I was wanting to hunt, I kill my light and I'm walking and dude, I probably jumped like 60 deer, like going to the spot. And I was like, I was like, I can't even get to where I'm wanting to go. So I sat down. I was gonna hang a set where I sat, but it was just not working out. I could hear deer like 20 yards away ripping ears of corn off the stalks, and I was like, "Screw it, I'm just gonna sit on the ground." Sat down on the ground. Dude, I sat on the ground, and I'm sitting there calling myself an idiot for sitting on the ground, and my dad's texting me, and he's like, "What are you are you up in your tree?" And I was like, "I'm on the ground, dude." I was like, "I didn't have time to get up in the tree." I was like, "I was scared I was gonna make too much noise and bust deer out." And he was like, "No." He's like, "You did right." And, right at first light, I glance up and I see this deer walking towards me with its head down, and it's, like, walking the edge of the CRP. I was like, "Oh, it's just I think it's that 140." There's, like, a 140-inch 10 point that he was sending me a video of every other day out there, and I was like, "I think it's him." And, I was like, "Whatever," and I was watching him, and he walked to, like, 15 yards, and it was, like, gray light, and it was legal shooting light, but it was so foggy, dude, it was just almost impossible to see, and he's, like, 15 yards, we raises his head up, dude, and I was like, "That is not the deer that I thought it was." I was like, "That's a freaking giant." So I'm, like, freaking out, I don't even have my bow in my hand, and, I'm freaking out. And he walks to like 20, 25, and he's standing there quartering away, eating underneath this big white oak that's just raining oaks or raining acorns. I rip it back, and I was like, 25. I let it eat, dude. I don't know where I hit this deer. My luminok didn't work. Nothing
Oh,
worked out.
no.
Dude, I heard it. It sounded great. Like it sounded like I absolutely pile drive this thing. And he took off boogieing, head down, and I was like, "He's dead." I was like, "I just killed the biggest deer in my life." I was like, and on the ground too. Yeah, no, I didn't. We called the drone, we called the dog, we had everybody
Gosh.
out there, and they came out there and they harvested later on that day. They harvested the entire corn all the cornfields. We flew the drones right before dark. Nothing. Nothing at all, and yeah, we just got our tails kicked, and
Oh,
Missouri
man.
was yeah, Missouri was not good to us this year, but it's whatever,
Dude, that stuff hurts so bad. So that buck I was telling you about September. You said that was this September, right?
yeah, that was this September.
So it's so funny you say that because I'd be curious to like check on the dates or something. But you mentioned that storm coming in. I think I was probably hunting the buck that I ended up killing during that same
Mhm.
storm because I got sucked into the dead center of this thing and
Yeah,
I had lightning and thunder, and I mean, it was so bad around me, and I was kind of in this, like, island of, like, 4 or 5 trees in the
yeah,
middle of a wide open field, and I started boogieing down the tree because 'cause I'm like, "There's no way that I can be up here during this," like and it was real thin trees too, so, like, I'm
yeah.
swaying back and forth with the wind,
Oh my gosh.
and while I'm climbing down, I look up, and the buck that I ended up killing was standing in the middle of the field.
Uh-uh.
He m he must have been bedded in the beans
Yeah.
and stood up because of the storm and sauntered off into the timber or something, but I look over and he's right there, and I'm sitting there like, I don't know what to do, like, do I try to hit the ground and crawl through the beans and try to get up to him? And I just watched him just disappear,
Oh, man.
and, when I ended up killing him was about a week or 2 later, and it was just
Mhm.
the thickest fog. I mean, I couldn't see 15 yards in front of me, and it slowly kept backing up to where it was like, now I can see 40 yards, now I can see 50,
Mhm.
and I'm never gonna get that image out of my head of watching that rack just come through the fog like that
Yep.
when he did
It's
that morning I killed him.
yeah, it is sick watching them come through the fog. I love hunting in the fog and seeing them in it, but I also hate it at the same time because I can't see that far. It gets to me so bad, I'm like, "What am I missing?"
I
But
think it helps us more than it hurts us a lot 'cause they probably have a hard time seeing us getting in too, so,
one100%.
I credit that weather a lot to me getting in on top of them that morning, but,
Yeah.
man, what a crazy ride. You've definitely got some, unfinished business in Missouri. You think that buck survived, or you think that he was just not found?
I think he survived. I think he had a really good chance of making it because, even the tracker, he told me I think he takes on about don't credit me on this, but I wanna say he takes on, like, 400 tracks a year, and
Yeah,
4 to 600 tracks a year, and he was like, "This deer is gonna make it." He's like and when we found my arrow too, there wasn't really that much blood on it. It was kinda like a watery blood. I figure I backstrapped him, maybe if anything, or it could have been a
yeah.
brisket shot, and, I'm not 100% what happened. I figure he told me, he's like, "If it was guts, we'd have found him. If it was anything else, we'd have found him." He
If it
was like,
was
"I think
liver,
he"
if it was yeah.
yeah, he was like, "I promise you he would not have went that far," and I was like, "No, I agree." And, he told me, he was like, "And, you know, we had blood for about 50 yards, and then it just completely disappeared, and I'm shooting those G5 mega meats, and I knew, I was like, "Dude, if I put a hole in one midsection, he's done, like, he's
He's
toast."
done. Yeah.
But
There's no
it
coming back
was
from that.
yeah, yeah, definitely. But, yeah, no, it was
Man,
tough, but
yeah, dude, I how cool would it be if that buck shows back up for you?
dude, with a big old scar on him, that would be sick.
Oh, yep. That make your season up pretty fast going into this year, man. And when you do make it out to Missouri, let me know. We'll get together and find some bucks, all right?
100%.
Bryson, I gotta say, man, thank you so much for coming on. Thank you for sharing that story of Dash. That is one of those like I said, that's the pinnacle of bow hunting for me when you can get history with a buck like that and get to chase them for years on end and make it all come together. It really doesn't get better than that. And congrats on the buck and honestly, one heck of a season having two slammers be put down. That's more than anybody can ask for. That's
Yeah.
really a bang up season, man. So I appreciate you coming on and let's get one down this year and do it again, all right?
Yes, sir, I appreciate it, brother.
You got it, man. Thank you guys for listening to today's episode of The Non-Typical Project. If you want to check out our special guest, their social media handles are located in the episode description. If you want to keep up to date with The Non-Typical Project, you can search The Non-Typical Project on Instagram. You can also head over to the main page of the podcast to see all currently available episodes with a new episode every Friday. To keep up to date with me, you can find me on Instagram. My Instagram handle is Dean_Hunts. And everything will once again be down below in the episode description. Thanks again for tuning in, and I'll see you next time.